All right.
You just together the Bible.
Okay. Here we go. Here we go.
You
All right.
just together the Bible, but it's hard.
Yeah. A bit. Bye. Okay. All right. So last night we saw that the northern kingdom of Israel ended. Right? Samaria fell, and all that jazz. Okay. So now we're at Test of a City from 2 Chronicles 32, verses 1 through 20. The king of Syria conquers the 10 tribes of Israel, but several years pass before the Assyrians make an attack against Judah. It's interesting that they make the distinction between Israel and Judah. Now word comes to King Hezekiah that the Assyrian army is laying siege to some of the walled cities of Judah. His next move will be against Jerusalem. He must prepare to defend the city. At Hezekiah's direction, workers build a tunnel between a spring outside the walls to a pool within the city. This will direct the flow of water to us and cut off the water supply for the Assyrians. My brothers are helping to build up the walls. Thank God we have a ruler who will defend us. Then Hezekiah calls the people together. Do not be afraid. There is more power on our side than on the side of the enemy. The Lord God is with us. But instead of making an armed attack on the city, the Assyrian king sends a task force to try to frighten the people of Jerusalem into surrendering. We have conquered other cities and countries. What makes you think your God can save you? After a while, this kind of attack begins to have its effects. How do we know God will save us? Other cities have fallen. And remember, it was the Assyrians who took Israel. When news of the people's fear reaches King Hezekiah, he seeks advice from Isaiah, God's prophet in Judah. Have faith. God will not forsake us. Suddenly, the Assyrian forces disappear. The Assyrians are gone. It may be a trick to get us out of the city. Send some men to see what is going on. Stealthily, Hezekiah's men approach the main camp of the enemy. How quiet it is, and not a guard in sight. A foolish king. When the Assyrians suddenly stop threatening the people of Jerusalem, King Hezekiah sends men to scout the enemy camp. They find it strangely quiet. Why, they're asleep, or a plague must have struck down the main force of the enemy. At the news, all Jerusalem goes wild with joy. Hezekiah said God was on our side, and God doesn't forsake those who believe and trust him. Never again, while Hezekiah lives, do the Assyrians try to take Jerusalem. Hezekiah continues to lead his people in their worship of God, and they are happy. At his death, his young son, Manasseh, is crowned king. No sooner is Manasseh on the throne than the followers of Baal begin their campaign to lead him away from God. To become rich and powerful as the Assyrians, we should worship idols as they do. Manasseh listens to their advice and restores idol worship in Israel. He even dares to place an idol in the temple of God. But worshiping the idols of the surrounding nations does not save Manasseh. The Assyrian king suspects Manasseh is plotting against him and sends troops to Jerusalem. In a surprise move, the Assyrians overcome Manasseh's forces and take the king prisoner. Bound by chains, Manasseh is paraded through the streets of Jerusalem. Where are his advisors now? And in Babylon, which is controlled by Syria, he is cast into prison. Alone and in the darkness of his cell, Manasseh reviews the past. He remembers that it was when his father ruled Judah, the Assyrians tried to take Jerusalem, and God had destroyed them with a plague. Assyria had not dared to strike again while his father lived, but his father had obeyed God, and he, Manasseh, O God, I sinned against thee. I repent and pray that you will forgive me. The Lost Book. From 2 Chronicles, chapter 33, verses 13 through 34, chapter 18, and 2 Kings, chapter 22, verses 1 through 10. In an Assyrian dungeon, King Manasseh of Judah, you clap very loud. Of Judah. Alessandra, calm down the clapping, okay? Repents for disobeying God and asks forgiveness. One day, he is suddenly brought before the king of Syria. Remove his chains, take him home, and let him rule Judah again, under my command. No one knows what prompted the Assyrian king to free Manasseh, but when he returns to Jerusalem, his people welcome him. The king has returned. Long live the king of Judah. But the people are amazed at his first speech. I was wrong to turn away from God, destroy the idols, and join me in worshiping God. Manasseh tries to save his nation, but it is too late. Most of the people continue to worship idols. Manasseh dies, and after 2 years, his 8-year-old grandson, Josiah, comes to the throne. As the king grows up, the idol worshippers try to influence Josiah, but the young king remains true to God. He rules Judah with a firm but just hand. One day, he calls for 3 of his officials. The walls of the temple are crumbling. I want them repaired immediately. Workmen begin at once. After a while, the high priest comes to check their progress. Stop! What's that object behind those stones? He takes his discovery to the king's scribe. Look what I have found. The Book of Law. It has been lost for years. Let me read it. Slowly, carefully, the scribe reads the ancient scroll. What does it say? It gives God's laws, but it also tells what will happen if the laws are not obeyed. I must read this to the king. But I'm afraid there's nothing he or anybody else can do to save Judah. A prophetess speaks. From 2 Kings, chapter 22, verse 11 through 24, chapter 20, and 2 Chronicles, chapter 34, verses 19 through 36, and chapter 16. Oh no, I'm sorry. From 2 Chronicles, chapter 34, verse 19 through chapter 36, verse 16. The scribe reads to King Josiah from the lost book that has been found in the temple walls. God's laws are certainly stated, and so is the punishment for anyone who disobeys them. Then Judah is doomed, for it has broken God's law many times. Josiah is so upset that he quickly sends several high-ranking officials to the prophetess Huldah. Where did I add those extra letters? The king has sent us to ask for a message from God about the book we have just read. Thus saith the Lord, because Judah has disobeyed me, Judah shall be destroyed, but the destruction will not come in the days of Josiah. Hoping he may yet win God's forgiveness for his nation, Josiah calls a meeting of the people. I have read God's laws to you. Let us now promise to obey them from this day on, and may God have mercy on us. At Josiah's command, pagan worship is wiped out in all the land. Objects used in idol worship are removed from God's temple in Jerusalem, taken outside the city, and burned. Then Josiah calls the people to keep the feast of the Passover. This reminds us of how God delivered our forefathers from slavery in Egypt centuries ago. While Josiah lives, Judah obeys the laws of God. But after his death, one king after another turns back to worship of idols. Lacking God's help, Judah comes under the control of a new world power, Babylonia. Judah is allowed to remain under its own rulers, but after King Zedekiah comes to the throne, he foolishly tries to regain his country's independence. In reply, the great Babylonian army sets out. The fall of Jerusalem. From 2 Chronicles chapter 36, verses 17 through 20. I cannot speak tonight. Through 2 Kings and 2 Kings chapter 25, verses 1 through 11. For 2 years and a half, that's a weird sentence, forces from the great Babylonian army besiege the city of Jerusalem. At last they break through the wall. That night, King Zedekiah and his army tried to escape. If we can make it to the hill region east of the Jordan, they'll never find us. It's our only chance if they capture us. But the Babylonians pursue them, and Zedekiah is captured before he can reach the river. He is blinded and taken to Babylon. Hungry, weary, and afraid, the people of Jerusalem are forced to begin the long march of 900 miles from Jerusalem to Babylon as captives. God has forsaken us. No, God warned us, but we would not listen. It is we who have forsaken God. Silver, gold, and all objects of value are stripped from the temple and palace buildings. Set fire to every corner of the city, and nothing remain that will give anyone ideas about rebuilding it. For days the fires rage, until all that is left of the beautiful city of Jerusalem is a heap of ashes and blackened stones. But on the way to Babylon, you brave captives dream of a day when they may return. Return of the captives, from Ezra 1 and 2. From the moment they are carried away as captives to Babylon, the Jews dream of returning to their homeland, Judah. The book of Ezra tells what happens to that dream. For many years, the Jews live as captives of the great Babylonian Empire. They watch anxiously as Persia, a strong country to the east, rises up to challenge Babylon. When the Persian army appears outside the city walls, King Belshazzar is so sure of Babylon's strength that he spends the night in a drunken feast with his court. Persian troops steal into the city, invade the palace, and slay Belshazzar. Within hours, the Babylonian Empire falls to Persia. Here you go. 2 weeks later, King Cyrus of Persia rides triumphantly into the city. So that's our new ruler. I wonder, does this mean good or evil for us Jews? I've heard that Cyrus is a just man. We'll have to wait and see. Soon after Cyrus takes over the Babylonian Empire, an official announcement is read. These are the words of King Cyrus. The God of Israel commands that a house be built for him in Jerusalem. Any of his people who want to do so may return. Those who do not go back should give up their possessions to help those who return to Judah. Thank God I'll see my homeland again. Oh, gifts of money, horses, mules, camels, gold and silver, food, and clothing pour in. At last a day comes when the great caravan is ready to leave. And then, thank God, I'll see my homeland again. On the long road home, they follow much the same route that Abraham, the father of the Jewish nation, traveled 1,500 years ago. Instead of saying 1,500, same thing. Years before, when he obeyed God's command to leave Ur and make a new nation in Palestine. When we left Jerusalem, it was in flames. I wonder what it looks like now. No matter how much they prepare themselves for the ruined city, they are brokenhearted when they walk through the rubble of Jerusalem. Solomon's beautiful temple stood over there. Our home. Let's try to find it. How proud we were when we built it. With our own hands, too. Now look at it. A home for wild dogs. Maybe we should not have come back. Maybe. Our forefathers built much of this city. We'll rebuild it. Jerusalem will rise again. You'll see. A city rises again from Ezra 3 through 10. Although the city of Jerusalem is in ruins, the Jews who have returned from captivity in Babylon set to work to rebuild it. Please stop making that noise. D'Alessandra, you know we don't like that noise. Please stop. Thank you. When the foundation of the temple is in place, the high priest leads the people in the service of worship and rejoicing. Oh, give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good. His mercy endureth forever. But the sound of rejoicing brings trouble. Samaritans who live near Jerusalem come with a request to help build the temple. We're sorry, but you do not worship as we do, so we cannot let you help us build our temple to God. So they can't let us help them build the temple. We'll make them sorry they ever came back to Jerusalem to build anything. What do you mean? The Jews soon learn what the Samaritan meant. One day, while they are at work, an officer of Cyrus rides up. By order of the king, this work is to stop. Stop? Why? It was King Cyrus himself who told us we should return to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple. Unhappily, the workmen lay down their tools and go home. Father, what could have happened? King Cyrus said. Right. Yes, but the Samaritans wrote him that we were trying to destroy his power here. The king is investigating the charges and has ordered the work on the temple to the temple stopped. Forced to obey, the Jews turn to work on their homes and gardens. Several years pass. Cyrus dies, and new kings come to the throne in Persia. But still, the temple in Jerusalem is not completed. Then one day, the Jews are approached by two prophets of God. Haggai, Zechariah, what brings you here? We have news. A new king, Darius, has come to the throne. Let's start work again on the temple. Maybe he won't stop us. King Darius not only lets the Jews complete the temple, he even orders his officers to give them the material they need. So, at last, the new temple of God is finished. With thankful hearts, the people offer their sacrifices and prayers to God. Some years later, Ezra, a priest, gains permission from the Persian king to go to Jerusalem to teach the people the laws of God and take a group of Jews with him. Under Ezra, Jerusalem grows in size and spiritual strength, but is still without walls and surrounded by hostile neighbors. Man. Notes. One night, while the city sleeps, a stranger and his guards ride toward Jerusalem. Two lines of defense. From Nehemiah. Maybe. The book of Nehemiah continues the story of the Jews' struggle to rebuild Jerusalem. At night, so that no one will see him, a stranger to Jerusalem rides around the city and examines the walls. This can be wiped out in one quick attack. You're right, Nehemiah, but it must have been a great fortress at one time. These walls are as thick as any we have in Persia. The next day, Nehemiah calls on the priests and rulers of the city. I examine the walls of Jerusalem. They are just heaps of broken stone, and the city is defenseless. You are right, but why? Why have I come? Because I, too, am a Jew. And while I was serving the king of Persia as his cupbearer, I learned that Jerusalem was without any defenses. I prayed to God, and the king gave me his permission to come here and build up the walls. Are you with me? We are, and we'll start at once. The work begins. Every able-bodied man and boy does his part. The women help, and slowly the walls begin to rise. But some of the neighboring countries do not want to see Jerusalem protected. If those walls are finished, the city will be too strong to attack. We must stop it now. Down with the walls. But while the enemies of Jerusalem plan to take the city, Nehemiah prepares to defend it. Pass these out to every worker. Let no man work without a weapon in his hand, ready to fight. The enemy approaches, but to their surprise, armed workers rise up, their spears raised and their bows pulled. They're armed! Retreat! The workers go back to their jobs, and soon strong walls and heavy gates again protect the city of Jerusalem. But inside there is an even stronger line of defense, a nation led by Ezra and Nehemiah to love and obey God. And that is where we will stop for tonight. We'll start on the book of Esther tomorrow. You, good sir, what am I going to do with you? What am I going to do with that dog? And make sure she's not pooping anywhere again. All right. Valerie, can you say goodnight? You said donut earlier when we got the inflatable out. You'll talk for an inflatable donut for the pool, but you won't say goodnight for mommy. I see how it is. You say goodnight? Good night. No? He's gonna stare at me. Good night? No? Alright. Well, you gonna come say good night? Maybe? You're too short. Let's see. Say good night. Alright. Good night, everybody.